Have you ever stopped to think about the science you read? We tend to assume it's rock solid, right? But what if? What if a huge chunk of it is actually built on kinda shaky ground? That's what we're going to dive into today. A quiet crisis that's been shaking the very foundations of research.
Okay, so look at this number, 39%. What do you think that means? It might just look like, another random statistic. But believe it or not, a few years back, this single number sent a massive shockwave through the entire scientific world. We're talking about a number that made people question everything we thought we knew about how we build knowledge, brick by brick.
Yeah, that 39%. It's the percentage of 100 major psychological studies that actually held up when someone tried to repeat them. I mean, think about that. Researchers from the Open Science Collaboration undertook this massive, painstaking effort. They took 100 studies from top-tier journals and just tried to do them again, and only 39 of them worked the second time. That startling finding is what became known as the Replication Crisis.
So, you might be asking, why is this such a big deal? Why does replication matter so much? Well, it's basically the bedrock of the whole scientific method. It's like, if a baker creates a brand new cake recipe, you'd expect other bakers to be able to follow it and get the same cake, right? If they can't, was it ever a real recipe to begin with? That's replication. It's how we check if a discovery is a real thing or just a weird one-off fluke. If you can't replicate it, the original conclusion is on some seriously thin ice.
And here's the kicker. This wasn't just a problem in psychology. Nope. As soon as this news broke, researchers in other fields started looking in the mirror, and guess what? They found the exact same cracks. Economics, cancer biology, you name it. A lot of what we thought were established findings turned out to be surprisingly fragile. It was a massive science-wide wake-up call.
But here's where the story takes a really cool turn. You'd think this would lead to a lot of doom and gloom, right? But it didn't. Instead of despair, this crisis actually lit a fire. It ignited this incredible movement to reform science from the inside out. So this isn't just a story about a problem, it's a story about a revolution.
And this quote from researcher Samain Vazir just nails it. She reframed the whole thing. She said, hey, this isn't a replicability crisis, it's a credibility revolution. And that just perfectly captures the new way of thinking. Scientists stopped seeing it as a failure and started seeing it as this intense period of self-improvement, one that's actually making science way, way stronger.
So how is this revolution happening? Well, it's unfolding on three main fronts: structural, procedural, and community changes. You can think of this diagram as our roadmap for the rest of this explainer. We're going to break down exactly how science is fixing itself.
All right, first up, structural change. This is the big one. It's all about changing the fundamental rules of the game, the incentives that shape how science gets done, how it gets funded, and how it gets published. Okay, so for decades, the name of the game in science was novelty. The biggest prize, the fame, the funding, it all went to the person who published something totally new, surprising, something that would grab headlines. But the new model, it's flipping the script. Now the reward is for rigor. It's a massive shift from asking what's new to asking the much more important question, is this right? And a perfect example of this is something called the registered report. The genius of this is just wow. Okay, so here's how it works. Scientists write up their plan, their methods, their hypotheses, and they submit that for peer review before they even collect a single piece of data. If the plan is solid, a journal gives them what's called in-principle acceptance. That means they promise to publish the study no matter what the results are. It could be a blockbuster finding or nothing at all. This is a game changer because it completely removes that pressure to find a positive result. The only thing that matters is doing good, solid science, which means the science news that you and I see becomes way more reliable.
Okay, so that's the structural stuff. Next up, let's talk about procedural change. This is all about getting into the nitty-gritty and upgrading the actual tools and techniques scientists use every single day to analyze their data and test their big ideas.
And to see why this is so critical, check this out. There was this fascinating study where researchers took one single neuroimaging dataset and one single hypothesis, and they gave it to 70 different research teams. And they basically said, okay, go for it, analyze this.
The results were absolutely stunning. No two teams used the exact same analysis, not one. And because of that, their conclusions were all over the map. It was this huge, glaring reminder that there are all these hidden choices a researcher makes along the way, what they call researcher degrees of freedom. And these countless small decisions can totally steer the outcome of a study.
So what's the solution? Well, one powerful new technique is called multiverse analysis. It's a cool name, right? And the idea is pretty simple.
Instead of just picking one single path to analyze the data, researchers now explore all the reasonable paths. It's like checking the view from every possible window in a house. It helps them figure out if what they've found is a real, solid landmark or just a mirage you can only see from one very specific spot.
All right, we've covered structural and procedural. The final piece of the puzzle is community change, and this is all about completely transforming how scientists work together. We're talking about a shift from small, isolated labs to massive, global collaborations.
And the flagship idea here is something called big team science. And it's exactly what it sounds like. Instead of one little lab chipping away at a huge question, you get hundreds of researchers from all over the world pooling all their resources, all their data, and all their brain power to tackle one single project together.
And the benefits here are just huge. For one, you get much larger and more diverse samples, which means the findings are way more likely to be true for everyone, not just one small group. You're pooling money and time so you can tackle problems that would be literally impossible for a single lab. Plus, when you bring all those different perspectives to the table, the science just gets better. It becomes more creative, more equitable, and a whole lot more robust.
And probably one of the coolest, most innovative forms of this is the adversarial collaboration. Get this. You take two scientists who have completely opposite theories, and you get them to work together to design one single experiment that could prove one of them right. It's like a scientific cage match, but where the goal is to get to the truth as fast as humanly possible. How cool is that?
Okay, so we've journeyed through structural, procedural, and community change. Where does all this leave us? What's the big picture outcome of this whole credibility revolution?
Well, here's the most important thing to take away from all this. What looked like a crisis wasn't a sign that science was broken. It was the exact opposite. It was science's immune system kicking into high gear. Science identified its own weaknesses and started systematically building a stronger, more credible, and in the end, a much more trustworthy version of itself.
So yeah, this revolution is creating a whole new landscape for research. It's a world that is more transparent, more rigorous, and way more collaborative than ever before. And that just leaves us with one final, really exciting question to think about. Now that science is becoming this open, what are the huge, grand challenges that we can finally conquer together?